As we know, the last plenary of every PCF forum would be in the evening because of certain unforeseen or maybe unavoidable circumstances. As Sir John informed us in the morning, he had to leave for Seychelles for the purpose he mentioned. A similar urgency is there for the other co-chair, the Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, because a very important meeting has to be attended at 9 o'clock tomorrow. And we know that because of the connecting flights, he can't make it if he starts in the morning, because traveling from Kochi, if there is no direct flight, and reach Delhi takes more time than traveling from Delhi to Frankfurt. And therefore, the Vice Chancellor decided that he would like to spend some time with all of you before he leaves, maybe after 2:30. There will be an elaborate summing up at 4 o'clock this afternoon, the last plenary session, and this is just to interact with you briefly and make his concluding remarks that we have arranged this unscheduled session, if I may say so. May I request Professor Pillai to address the gathering.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for accommodating this special session on my request. Originally, I was supposed to be leaving tomorrow morning, because tomorrow it so happened that we had to have a final discussion of our budget, university's budget, and this was scheduled at 9:30 tomorrow. That was the reason. So I had to be there from the very beginning. I need to be there. If I postpone it to tomorrow morning, I may not be able to do that. Thank you very much for this forbearance, and I really appreciate that you have all come for this special session. I don't want to make a speech or anything here. I am attending the Pan Commonwealth Forum for the first time. I have not attended it so far. So this is, I have seen that this is a very commendable initiative by the Commonwealth of Learning, giving an opportunity for people from all walks of life, not just from the universities or colleges or open schools or open universities, from all walks of life. And the structuring of the Pan Commonwealth Forum is also really commendable. So we get of course we receive lot of inputs from the Commonwealth of Learning, and I understand that during the last 5 days, the dialogues and discussions which were happening, that will give us a lot of opportunities for quality interventions in our own practices, whether it be in the open university system or in the conventional university system where the dual mode of learning is there, or in the agricultural practices which the ordinary the farmers are doing, whether it be in gender development, whether it be in social justice, whether it be open schooling, whether it be in technology enabled learning, we could network and we could share our experiences. And from many of these conferences, what we achieve is not just, we are not going to learn everything thorough, but we will get an opportunity to know what is happening in other countries, what is happening in other universities, how these things can be contextualized. And Commonwealth of Learning is also taking a very flexible attitude, that they are giving a general overall framework of quality practices in open and distance learning, and then try to encourage the practitioners to follow these things. And I take this opportunity to once again thank you all for the participation in this PCF 6. I take this opportunity to appreciate and thank the President of the Commonwealth, Sir John Daniel, and Vice President Professor Asha Kanbar, and Bershel Whiteman, who is not here, probably he may join us, and then the Board of Governors of the Commonwealth of Learning, my own colleagues in the university who are including Professor Ramanujan and all the organizing committee members and the various chairs of the different sessions and the participants, paper presenters and all that. For example, to coordinate an activity of this kind for the last 2 years, it has been decided almost 2 years ago. It was 2 years networking with Commonwealth of Learning from Vancouver, and then Indira Gandhi National Open University, and networking with each and every one of you. It's a real Herculean task. I think let me congratulate and appreciate the efforts taken by the entire Commonwealth of Learning, Professor Ramanujan, and all the colleagues for this wonderful coordination. I also take this opportunity to thank the board of members of the Board of Management of Indira Gandhi National Open University. They have many of them. They were here during these days. They also wanted to have a feel of how these things happened. And then in this conference, I do not know, in all the other conferences also it was like that, almost all the vice chancellors of the state open universities in this country, I think all except one, all the vice chancellors of the state open universities in this country participated. As chairman of the Distance Education Council, I consider it a great opportunity for them. I see Professor Purushottam Rao and several others. And then, in addition to the open universities and in the country, large number of participants from conventional universities where distance education institutes are functioning. Of course, the Distance Education Council encouraged them to participate in this. We have 150 distance education institutes outside the open university system in the country, in the conventional universities. And there are also large number of private providers in distance education. I saw representatives of private providers in distance education here. I have seen large number of civil society organizations working at the grassroots, whether it be literacy, digital literacy, agricultural, ODL practice in agriculture, several. So this is a real cross-section of the entire society looking for opportunities for enhancing the quality of life by providing education. And we cannot just say that the priorities of institutions are all the same, totally different. Priorities may be different. Yesterday we heard Shashi Tharoor saying, even in a country like India, you have taught disparities in education are so huge. He was comparing. Similarly, in the Commonwealth countries also, disparity. He was illustrating, giving very specific examples of African countries, how the disparities are there. So this conference gave us an opportunity to showcase some of these success stories and also try to find out what is required to be done, how we can network, how we can share our resources, capabilities, both intellectual and infrastructure capabilities, how technology can be utilized, all these things. And we also deliberated on the aspect of enhancing the access, but at the same time we were more concerned how this access can really lead to success in life in a very way. We discussed the employability, we discussed about the various governmental policies, lot of things. I don't want to make a summary because the usual summing up all these things will be there. As the Vice Chancellor of Indira Gandhi National Open University, one of the open universities in this Commonwealth, as well as the co-chair of Indira Gandhi National Open University, I thought of just appreciating the efforts. I also take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank the the hotel, Le Meridian Hotel Management. They have stopped all the activities for the last 1 week. They have stopped all the activities for the last 1 week, and they have supported us in a very big way. They have provided the right kind of ambience. I think I am staying in one place continuously for the last, maybe for 6 days continuously. For the last 3 years, this is for the first time I am staying continuously. The real ambience of this institution. And let me thank the entire management. I don't know whether somebody is here. The entire management of the Le Meridian for providing the facilities. I hope you had I know we were all very hectic with your own professional activities related to conference. I do not know whether you had a little bit time to see Kochi and around. Of course, probably you will again come to Cochin or in some other place in Kerala, because now you know that there's a place like this, you will come here again. And we consider it a great opportunity that we got, Indira Gandhi National Open University got the opportunity to host this very important event which will enhance the status of open and distance learning in the whole world. Thank you very much.
May I now request Professor Asha Kanwar, the Vice President of COL, to make some observations.
Ramanujam, I thought I was going to make the observations in the valedictory.
You will make again.
Well, how many observations can I keep making? But I think let me use this opportunity to thank our hosts, the Indira Gandhi National Open University, for being such wonderful partners. This has been, by all accounts, a very, very successful conference. And we are very privileged to have as our partners the largest university in the Commonwealth, which is IGNOU. And we really are very grateful to Professor Swaminathan, who chaired the whole conference, Professor Pillai, the Vice Chancellor, who was the co-chair with our own President, Sir John Daniel. And we are very grateful to all of you for coming to this conference and making it such a success. And if I was to, since I have been asked to make some remarks, I may as well make some remarks in a historical context in terms of where have we come from the first Pan-Commonwealth. For Professor Pillai, this was his first PCF. For me, this is my fourth. And we've had 6 PCFs in all, starting in 1999. So what is it that we've actually seen that has changed over these last 11 years, from 1999 to 2010? And I think I'll just highlight 3 major changes which have taken place. In the first PCF in 1999, at that time, there was a lot of pressure on COL and the World Bank to develop courses and to make those courses available to institutions in the developing world. Now, this was a very top-down approach, and at that time, there was a paucity of courses. Today, there is over 1 trillion pages on the web, and we now live in the world of OERs. So actually, the whole emphasis has shifted at that time for organizations like COL to develop courses to now in 2010, when in such a short time there has been such a paradigm shift. You know, Thomas Kuhn said that a paradigm shifts in 100 years or more. Now paradigms are shifting in every 10 years. And so what we have now is a complete shift, and we are now dependent on OERs. And then we are also noticing that from a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up. It's the people who are actually deciding what kind of, the consumers have become the producers of content. So that is one major shift which I noticed in the last 11 years. The second shift is that when we started the PCFs, there was this great breastbeating about, you know, digital divide, poor developing countries. We are on this side of the digital divide. I haven't heard that expression used even once here. I don't know if it happened in any of the sessions, but in general, there is much less emphasis on the digital divide, because the digital divide has, in any case, at that time was being, determined on the basis of whether you had computers or not. In fact, even Bill Gates said that 2 billion of the world's poor people, that is 1/3 of the world's poor people, will not have access to computers. So what has changed? It's not computers which have actually crossed the digital divide, it's mobile technology, community radios. Older technologies are coming back in a big way, and that can be exemplified even from the Government of India's policy that in the next 3 years there'll be about 4,000 licenses offered to community radios in this country, whereas at this moment there are about only 98 such centers. So I think the second is that we've managed to cross the digital divide, and the emphasis is now much more on, not so much on technology, but on the learner. The divide is not between the one technology and the other. The divide is between the institution and the learner. So I think that's the divide we have to cover. Whether the learner is at the center of our attention, whether the learner is part of the community, whether the learner is on the margin. How can technology be used to bridge that divide between the institution and the learner? So this is the second thing which I think there is a major change. The third is that even in 2002, when we had the Pan-Commonwealth Forum in Durban, we were talking about development, How do we actually, because 2000, when the international global community got together and set up the 8 Millennium Development Goals, at that time we were beginning to talk about, how can we use ODL for development in 2002. It was just a discussion which was beginning, because ODL was still being used primarily for higher education or education at the tertiary level. But in this conference, the major change which I've noticed is that there's so much kind of, dynamism around skills development, which is not necessarily in the tertiary sector, open schooling, healthy communities, lifelong learning for farmers. And in one of our keynotes, we had a very fascinating discussion of, of the Man Deshi Udyogini, how actually the people are determining what is going to be the future definition of a university. We all know what a definition of a university is. But I think all these things are going to be overturned. And as the technology develops, I think the time span for paradigms to shift will become even smaller. And there will be, changes faster than we can even anticipate. And I think on that note, let me stop here and say thank you very much. And thanks to the Vice Chancellor, thanks to Ramanujam, thanks to the Secretariat team, and thanks to all of you.
This forum on open learning is coming to an end. We thank all the delegates who have come from all over the world for your active participation in the various sessions. We hope that this has been an enriching experience for all of you, and that you will take home fond memories of this beautiful land. I request Professor Ramanujam to welcome Honorable Virgil Whiteman. With glass. I now request Professor Ramanujam to present the bouquet to Professor Asha Kanwar. May I now request Honorable Virgil Whiteman to present the bouquet to Professor Ramanujam. Thank you. I now request Professor Asha Kanwar to talk about her observations on the forum.
Opening batswoman, but even so, Honorable Virgil Whiteman, Chairman called Board of Governors, Professor Ramanujam, Program Chair and Pro Vice Chancellor IGNOU, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege to be here and to share with you some thoughts about, you've already had two summing ups, one from Sir John Daniel this morning, and one from Professor Pillai, Vice Chancellor IGNOU earlier. So there's very little left for me to say except, to give you a bit of a historical perspective. I've been to 4 PCFs earlier, and there are certain things which have changed. One of the things which hasn't changed is that in the first PCF they had several online forums, and they asked people from across the Commonwealth that what do they think PCF should do. And people said it should result in collaboration, cooperation, and it should result in consultation and community building. I think those four objectives which people had identified at that first PCF are still valid today. And I think this PCF has achieved that to a great extent. But in which way have we changed? The first is that in those days there was a great emphasis on developing courses, and they wanted organizations like CALL to develop courses, especially in management, public administration, as a result of which a Commonwealth Executive Master's program was developed. And the reason was that in many universities such courses did not exist at that point. And in his concluding remarks, our then president, Tansri Raj Thanarajan, whom many of you know as Raj, said that at a recent count there are 17,000 free courses available at this point. Now that was then in 1999. Today in 2010, there are hundreds and thousands of free courses available online, and it is technology which has made this possible. So there is a major shift in what we were discussing then and what has happened now. Today we talk about OERs. And I must share with you that the CALL approach to OER is neither the production of content nor the dissemination of content, but it's got a 4C approach. One is to develop content, second to develop capability, third to develop communities of practice, and fourth, since we are a Commonwealth organization, to foster the value of cooperation. So those are the 4 C's: content, capacity, collaboration, and cooperation, and building communities of practice. So that is one change which has taken place. The second change was that in 1999 there was a great concern with this .com frenzy about, firstly, the great kind of value of technology for technology's sake. And the second was that this is going to be a major digital divide between the developed and the developing worlds. And this concern continued over the next 2 or 3 PCFs. And now in this one, this is hardly something which people have articulated, because I think the digital divide has been closed because of technologies which have emerged from the ground up. Mobile technologies, community radio, etc. So if computers and high-tech and Web 2.0 technologies are not available to the people, people have found other ways of dealing with it. So I think the message is loud and clear that it's the kind of, bottom-up approaches which now I think the community of distance educators is now espousing, is familiar with, and this is a lesson in it for us. So that is the second difference. And the third difference is that we did start talking about, the first PCF was about empowering through technology. The second PCF we started talking about development. And that time development meant, how does the ODL community contribute to achieving the Millennium Development Goals and the EFA goals which the international community has articulated? At that time we were not sure how we would do it, because at that time ODL was still restricted to higher education, tertiary education, teacher training, and so on. But now in this PCF you have seen the difference. You have seen this morning how much interest there was in skills development. Skills development is really a major area of the future. Teacher education, open schooling, healthy communities, lifelong learning for farmers. These are the things which have changed. The other thing which has changed in the slogan learning for development is that it's not about access alone, it's not about success alone, but it's about that access and success leading to development. So in a way it changes our perspective for everything, because right now CALL was very big in the last decade on quality assurance. And quality assurance, as we all know, is inputs, process measures, and output measures. But I think when we talk about learning for development, within that context, we move to the next level, which is the level of outcomes. How is it that our success in learning is actually helping our own development and the development of society? And then that again takes us to a much broader area. So I think things have shifted quite a lot. There's a lot of things for us to reflect on. The second thing I would like to say is that in this conference we had 4 sub-themes. Those themes were social justice, skills development, community development, and formal education. Now there is one thing which underpins everything, and that is the kind of gender divide which exists within our society. Education is supposed to be a tool for transformation. How is it that in all these years we have not been able to close this major divide, which is the gender divide? And from the Commonwealth perspective, I'm not talking about women alone, because if we are on the Indian subcontinent, gender means women. Women are the ones who are disadvantaged in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan. In fact, India's ranking is even lower in the UNDP index than Pakistan now, for some strange reason. So, but in the wider Commonwealth perspective, we also have boys' underachievement. In the many Caribbean countries, in small landlocked countries like Lesotho, etc., it's boys' underachievement which is becoming a major concern in education. Because boys are dropping out of education, they are not achieving. What are the reasons for that? And in fact, this situation has become so dire in the Caribbean, and the Minister of Education from Guyana was there. I haven't seen him since after the first day. But in Guyana, they have actually made a ministry, so in the Ministry of Social Affairs or something, there is a department for men's empowerment. And when the suggestion came that there should be a department, for gender, the men objected most violently, and they said, no, we are not going to go with the women's department, we want a men's department separately. So, it is actually a genuine problem. Any kind of gender disparity, whether it is against men or women, undermines all of us as human beings. So, what can we do, and what have we done during PCF? You've heard 2 major keynote addresses. One was from Chetna Sinha, in which she talked about empower women. That was her slogan. And then Dr. Shashi Tharoor talked about educate girls. I think it is a continuum. You start with educate girls and then you empower girls. It's one continuum, because educating girls is not enough. The stereotypes that we had in fact a gender panel in which what came out was that education does not necessarily counter gender stereotypes which are deeply embedded and entrenched in our society. So then what makes a difference? What we need is actually the creating systems whereby every individual gets a sense of agency, the ability to change their surroundings and their environment, and that is what actually empowers people. So I think we need to go beyond these things. It's very easy to say it for me here, but it's very difficult to do, because we are trying to do the same thing at the Commonwealth of Learning. We have a gender policy, gender action plan, gender mainstreaming agenda, and with great difficulty you can concretize these things, but it's something for us to reflect on, and I think gender continues to be a major divide, especially in this part of the world, and we need to take that very seriously. So I think the next question that I want to ask is that what does CALL take away from this conference? This is a every 2-year event for us. What is it that we've taken from this one? The first thing we've taken is, of course, partnership. CALL is very modest. We are only 35 people in Vancouver, 7 in Delhi. So how do we manage to cover 46 developing countries out of the 54 in the Commonwealth? Through our partners. And those partners are you. And there are many others who were not able to come. So I think the first thing is that we have strengthened existing partnerships and made new partnerships. So that is a very big takeaway for CALL, because it's through you that we will continue our work in all these different countries. That is the first. The second is that we also work in 3-year planning cycles. And those 3-year plans are always constructed based on what you think are the needs and priorities of the countries. We can't sit in Vancouver and decide what the Commonwealth countries want. We want the countries to tell us, again back to the question of the bottom-up approach. And in this conference, we had our consultant, Dr. Patrick Spaven, who's done focus groups, etc., and done a lot of one-on-one interviews with people. He's going to give us a report on what people actually think, what CALL should do differently, what it does well, and so on. And that feedback is very important, because it helps us not only improve our processes for this triennium, which ends in June 2012, but it also helps us start thinking of what will be our next 3-year plan, which is 2012 to 2015. Another interesting question which he asked you was, what did you think of the PCF? And some very nice feedback has come out of that. Very creative, very constructive, and we are going to take that into account as we start planning for the next PCF. So I think this has been very valuable for our planning and for our processes and for our practice for the next 3 years. And then finally, I think it's also enhanced our understanding. We keep talking about learning for development, learning for development. I think there are new things which are coming out, that the development does not necessarily have to be driven by the institutions. The development can be driven by individuals. We've seen that from the Mandeshi Udyogini example, which Chetna Sinha gave. We've seen that from the healthy communities example. We've seen that from learning for farmers example. So there are any number of things which we have learned new from this conference, which we are going to take back, which we will discuss with our colleagues, which we will discuss with you, and hopefully, I mean, it will all lead to better development from all concerned. And then finally, I would like to say my vote of thanks to the various people who have partnered with us. First of all, I'll begin with IGNOU. The Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, Professor Pillai, has been most understanding, most open and generous with his time, resources, everything. So a very deep gratitude to him. To Professor Ramanujam, Program Chair, Himar Arjun Singh, Conference Manager, the whole Secretariat. I won't name everybody, otherwise we'll be sitting here and we'll miss our Bollywood dance and song. The theme teams at IGNOU, and all the 10 partner institutions who have been listed here. So please note carefully, because they have all been duly acknowledged. And then I would like to also say thanks to our own staff here. You know, we have only 8 education specialists. And during this conference, not only were they in charge of the themes and the program of this conference, they had pre-conference workshops, they ran sessions, they presented papers, they did the EDIA awards, they were the panels, they were the judge, they were the jury, and they were also the presenters. So I think they've done a fantastic job of multitasking. Thanks to all our colleagues in Vancouver who've been supporting us from there. They are invisible here, but for us they're very visible because we are in touch with them every day. And with that, I also thank and hand back it to our MC, our Honorable Chair, Burchell Whiteman, whom you know has been here throughout the conference. He has been quietly inspiring and supporting us, and we are very grateful to him, and to our 2 board members, Ms. Jenny Glennie, who has left, and to Her Excellency Mariam Katagam from Nigeria. So thanks to everyone, and with that, back to you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your observations. On this final day of the forum, I would request Honorable Burchell Whiteman to kindly share his thoughts with us.
Thank you. Professor Ramanujam, Professor Kanwar, Vice President of COL, colleagues all. This has been a wonderful experience. We have been sharing generously. We've been sharing with passion. We've also been sharing with respect. We have informed ourselves, and we have informed others. We have raised questions and found some answers, which in some cases have led to other questions. But that is the nature of the conversations around learning and around development. And when you marry the two, learning and development, you raise the level of dialogue and you raise the level of debate. At the end of the day, however, I hope we can say that many of us came as strangers and we are parting as friends. We have in fact expanded the circle of those who believe in the mission of COL, the power of ODL, and the principles on which the Commonwealth was founded 62 years ago. I believe it was Professor Anwar Ali who said that in the Commonwealth, we understand the value of sharing without profit. Small surpluses perhaps, but not profit. And colleagues, that is what seems to me to be at the heart of what we've been about in a forum such as this. In considering the different development themes, the modalities for achieving the desired outcomes, we have been using every opportunity to add value to what we do to learn from others, to innovate, to be encouraged, and to encourage. But I am satisfied that we have not lost sight of the ultimate purpose of our engagement, which is to create and strengthen the pillars of opportunity, equity, social justice, and respect for all, on which our democracies will survive and prosper. We have reminded ourselves that it is among the humblest of individuals and the most unlikely communities that we often find the solutions to major challenges, as Mrs. Chetna Sinha pointed out yesterday. If I may quote from a Jamaican thinker and social activist of the early 20th century, and one well known on the African continent and throughout the Americas, Marcus Messiah Garvey, he said, "God and nature first made us what we are, and then out of our own creative genius, we make ourselves what we want to be. Follow that great law. Let the sky and God be our limit, and eternity our measurement." Our purpose, the purpose of all of us gathered here, is ultimately to support the creative genius which resides in each of our people whose lives are affected by our work. At the risk of being invidious, I have to say that Dr. Thoreau yesterday afternoon, in his brilliantly erudite exposition, and Sir John Daniel in his classic summary this morning, both reflect the power of the intellect and the preparedness to challenge conventional wisdom and conservative orthodoxy, which is part of the message of ODL and part of the message of COL. But from my listening in on a number of the sessions, those two gentlemen simply represented on a central platform what many of you in the course of the last 4 days have been doing through the papers presented and the discussions in which you have engaged. If we can translate but a fraction of the intellectual energy and the passion which have been present here into continued action in Nairobi, Delhi, Wellington, Vancouver, Port of Spain, and Port Moresby, then our sojourn in this most welcoming city and in this state, which is a center of educational opportunity, would certainly have been more than worth it. So let me end by thanking you all. I certainly join in thanking the IGNU team, which took on a gargantuan task and accomplished it with deceptively apparent ease. I think the ease was only apparent, not real. And I also thank the hard-working team from COL Vancouver, and COL at SEMCA, for ensuring that the central purposes of the forum were prepared for and properly met. And may I thank the people of Kerala in particular for making us all so very welcome. COL Vice President Asha Kanwar is brilliant at finding appropriate quotes from English literature to suit every occasion, and I will not attempt to match her. But as I reflected on the enthusiasm which pervaded this conference, lines from William Wordsworth, inspired by the French Revolution, flashed across my mind. Bliss was it in that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heavy. The second line will clearly not apply to all of us. But we can all display the energy of youth as we promote and implement the strategy of ODL to enhance the range and quality of learning for development. Let me thank all of you, one and all, for making PCF 6 another success, and I trust that many of us will look forward to PCF 7 in 2012. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. As the forum comes to an end, may I request Professor Ramanujam, Program Chair, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Honorable Ursula Whiteman, Chair of the Board of Governors of Commonwealth of Learning, the Vice President of COL, and my colleague, Professor Asha Kanwar, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a very long journey, both for PCF and the delegates of PCF 6. PCF traveled from Brunei to Durban, from Durban to New Zealand, from New Zealand to Jamaica, again came back to London on way, and then landed in Delhi. But we had to travel from Delhi to Kochi. Though it is a long journey, by now I am sure all of you would agree it has been a journey worth taking. When I actually started my work in October last year, to be honest, I was a bit unsure which course to chart in the labyrinth of activities which needed a tremendous amount of patience, first of all, and then energy, which at times I didn't have, and also a team to support me. I'm extremely thankful to both Sir John Daniel and Professor Rajasekaran Pillai for their generous support and the kind of freedom they gave me, and also the trust they entrusted in me. They had me. What I did was, as a simple democratic principle, I wanted to involve as many people as possible. 3 times I sent bulk mails to 1,000 academics of IGNOU. And 4th time, I chose 25 to 30 persons and invited them as special invitees. And then I had to follow the democratic principle when I got the volunteers who were not that senior in rank and not so experienced in conducting national or international conferences, but they had one great quality in them. They were willing to dedicate themselves and involve themselves in whatever activity they had to undertake. And then I was very sure it is always the one who has the hope and courage that will achieve the goal, and not what attributes one has over the years. And therefore I decided to plunge into this, and I was also often reminded that famous statement of Napoleon: you first get yourself in the thick of the battle and see what happens. With that audacity, and of course with certain caution, I went ahead, and I have all my colleagues here who supported me, both in the committees and in theme teams. Quite a few of them are here: Malati, Fuljale, Sudarshan, Elumalai, Subangi. I could not see many others. And of course, Maithili, who was here for only 2 days. All of them had to bear a lot of burden, and they never grumbled. At any time of the day or in the evenings, I could call them either in person or through telephone. They were ready to come and help me. I thank all of them. And of course, Dave must be here somewhere, Dave Wilson. When we met in November last year to plan out the strategies, I think Brian was also there. We had a meeting, and we could not meet Roger at that time because he was not well. And I came with a certain clarity that what we should not be neglecting. So I asked Dave about PCF 5 in London. Could you tell me what were the 2 or 3 important points which you noticed should be taken care of? Then he told me maybe food and then accommodation in his own inimitable style. I assured him in the first week of November 2009, after attending PCF 6, nobody would go with any complaint about food because it is India. And I also told him, if we had any problems with accommodation, I will see to it that my friends in Kochi or the neighboring towns of Kerala would take care of our guests, because this is the tradition of India, which treats the guest as God. And therefore, I assured him, on both these counts, you can be sure there won't be any major problems. And I am sure the delegates would agree with me. They never had any complaints, either with food or with accommodation. I must thank all the staff of COAL after Sir John, my long-standing friend, Professor Asha Kanwar, the team leaders, Abdul Rahman, Bala, Alison, Ian, and the excellent help that I received from the Secretariat of COAL, particularly Jasmine Lee and Lorraine. These were the people who could give you any information through email as and when you ask for. Of course, it was a different matter. The time is a very unkind God. Whenever we had the teleconferencing, we had 4 of them, the entire COAL team would come on the line. After John, at least 14 of them would introduce themselves, one by one. And then it was my turn, mostly to say, I'm Ramanujam, I'm alone. But then the communications took place, and during the last 2 conferences, my colleagues Himar and Fazil also joined, and it worked very well. We didn't have any problems. I must thank my PVCs, the committee members who served in IGNU in their capacities as members of various organizing committees, exhibition committees, particularly Lakshmi Reddy, Prasad, Pankaj, and others whose names I may not be able to recall immediately. PCF Secretariat, apart from Himar, Fazil, Sweta, who is not here, Amarjit, our webmaster, Ghanshyam, Yogesh, they did a wonderful job. And if ever I would like to have another team, I would take all of them. And part of the team also included my personal secretary in my PVC office, Sundarlal. So the distinction between my office, PVC office, and the PCF secretariat actually got blended, merged. And all these gentlemen and ladies really helped me a lot. Our institutional partners, SEMCA, played a major role. I must particularly thank Dr. Sridhar. He acted in a number of committees, and he is always ready to find simple solutions for complicated problems because of his long experience and his never changing tone. Whether you are in a tense situation or in a happy situation, his tone would always remain very casual, undisturbed, and that really helped us. Thank you, Sridhar. Our EMPC team, headed by Mr. Ravikant, and the members, Sangameshwar, Santosh, and others, they did a splendid job that you must have seen in the video streaming and all that. And the MPDD organized the exhibition wonderfully well with a short notice, That is something which should be commended. Other institutional partners, whose list is very long, but I must not forget to thank them, each one personally. Karnataka State Open University, KSU, which became part of the sponsors who sponsored the dinner on 26th, and its Vice Chancellor, Professor Rangappa. Tamil Nadu Open University, Dr. Kalyani and Professor Murugan. ISET, All India Society for Electronics and Computer Technology, IONS, Digital Learning, University World News, National Institute of Open Schooling, UNESCO, ASAID, University of London, Open University, UK, Commonwealth Secretariat, and Le Méridien Hotel, particularly Rajesh Madan and Sri Kumar, who had to solve many of the complicated issues which you normally expect to face in conducting such mega events. And finally, I must thank CAM, Prasant and Jaya. Jaya will be everywhere, and that assured me that she would take care of every bit of the requirements that each one had, and she has been taking. And I must also thank the MC, Master of the Ceremony, Sri Priya, for her graceful announcements and keeping a smile always, even at the time of urgency. Now, before I conclude, I don't want to make any speeches because I just read out. I think perhaps this is the first time I have to look at the papers because I don't want to leave anyone. The trend set by Asha in quoting from Indian literature, which caught on very well with Honorable Bushel Whiteman, will not leave me if I don't quote something from my own literature, which never got included in her list. Thiruvalluvar, who is easily lived 2000 years ago, of course he has written 1330 couplets, small couplets, full of wisdom and knowledge. But I will quote only one. உவப்ப தலைகூடி உள்ள பிரிதல் அனைத்தே புலவர் தொழில். When poets, academics and intellectuals meet, they brim with so much of happiness. But when they have to part, they part with a sense of sadness. With that sense of sadness, I also have to part with all of you, only with the hope that all of us, if not all of us, most of us would meet again in PCF 7 or in some other conference. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this the curtain falls on the 6th Pan Commonwealth Forum. We thank you all once again for making this forum a huge success.